Hi, this video is to help people see what an assessment activity looks like from start to finish. And so I'm using myself as an example for this video presentation. The first thing that I needed to do was figure out which classes I needed to assess. And in order to do this, I knew that I needed to assess classes that my department and I planned to assess in our 7-year plan. That's where I went to look first. I found my 7-year plan by going to the portal and then going to Faculty and Staff Workplace and then going to Assessment Documents and then going to the 7-year plan and course crosswalks and then going to the English department 7-year plan. When I opened that document, my department's 7-year plan looked like this. So on the left, you'll see what the plan looks like, and then there's kind of a zoom in on the right. Here I found which class, which institutional outcome, which is called Gen Ed 1 here, but in the future will be called institutional outcome or program outcome. I needed to assess for the 2019-2020 year. So after I figured out which class I needed to assess and which institutional outcome I was going to assess, I needed to decide whether I was going to do a blank template or a prepackaged activity template. So every assessment will need to be submitted as an assessment report. There are 2 templates to begin with, the course level assessment template form or the prepackaged activity form. The prepackaged plan, in the prepackaged plan, some of the form is filled out to give you an option for your assessment. These forms are just there to help you create and track your plan. They're laid out exactly with the questions you'll need to answer in the final report you submit in SharePoint, which we'll come to at the end. Your actual final report will need to be submitted on the portal, which is where you'll find SharePoint. If possible, you'll need to coordinate your course level activity with the institutional outcome being assessed by the rest of the college that year. So we have 3 institutional outcomes at the college: communication, computation, and human relations. And this year, in the 2019-2020 year, we were looking at institutional outcome 1. So the 2 templates that you can use look like this. You have a course level assessment template and then a prepackaged course level Gen Ed 1 activity template. And again, these templates are going to look a little bit different in the future. The prepackaged course level Gen Ed 1 activity will probably say something like prepackaged course level program outcome 1 activity or institutional outcome 1 activity. But that's the one that I chose. So in the next part of this video presentation, I'm going to actually talk about what I did in my assessment. This is just to give you an idea for your own assessment reports, what you might be able to do. At the end of the video, I'm going to be talking about how to actually submit the report, but the next few slides are just going to be about what my assessment report looked like. So the first thing that it asks is which Gen Ed, or in the future institutional outcome, are you tying this to? And I tied mine to 1, institutional activity 1. Students will be able to communicate clearly and effectively. And then I also needed to tie that to a course outcome. So the course outcome for English 102 that I chose is extend a reasoned piece of literature based on a close reading of the text. Then it's going to ask, what did you do for your assessment and why? And this is worded a little strangely. So it's really asking you, what are you going to be doing for your assessment? Because many people are going to be filling out this report after they've completed everything, it asks it in that way. In the future, it might look a little bit different. For my fall 2019 assessment, I looked at the ways in which I hold students accountable for reading and whether holding students accountable for reading has a positive impact on student learning. This relates to Gen Ed Outcome 1 and Course Outcome 12. Now that is going to generally be filled out for you if you choose the prepackaged activity. You'll just have to add that course outcome yourself. So the next thing it asks is what tools or measures did you use for your assessment and what were your results? And again, this question is phrased a little bit strangely. It's asking you one thing that you can answer when you're planning, and then it's asking you one thing that you're supposed to answer when you're done with your assessment. In the future, it'll look a little bit different. So my assessment of holding students accountable for reading was as follows. For the first essay of the quarter, I asked students to read 4 articles and 1 novella. John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men. They would be writing an essay which essentially attempted to place the novella as a piece of modernist writing. Of Mice and Men, which was 107 pages, had 4 quizzes attached to it. For 3 of the articles, I required students to write a 300-word article summary. For 1 article, which was the Audrey Farley article, I simply asked students to read the article. In class, I told the students that the article was very easy to read and was basically exactly what they needed to write their essay. I also sent an announcement reminder on Canvas which stated there's another reading in the files section of Canvas that I want you to read, and that could be useful for your essay, but isn't worth any points, and you don't have to write an article summary for it. Evaluation methods or tools. Once I had collected the essays, I surveyed the works cited page of each essay to see which articles the students actually used in their essay. What were the results? So my results were as follows. Of the novella for which reading comprehension was quizzed, everyone in the class seemed to have read the novella for their essay. And I don't see any way that they could have written the essay without reading the novella, but maybe with good spark notes, who knows. Of the articles for which a grade was attached to them via a summary, 20 out of 25 students used Kathleen Cooper's article. This article was 1 page and very broad. 14 out of 25 used Josh Rahn's article. This article was 7 pages, detailed, but covered much of what the students needed in their essay. And 19 out of 25 students used Joseph Singal's article. This source was 21 pages and very challenging. Of the articles without a grade attached to them, 3 out of 25 people used Audrey Farley's article. This source was 2 pages and what I felt like was exactly what they would need to write the essay. And then 3 out of 25 students used other texts not recommended by me. Analysis of results. It is clear that holding students accountable for reading has a tremendous impact on whether they do the reading and/or apply the reading to future work. While use of the novella and use of the very short Kathleen Cooper article is not surprising, it is surprising that when given a choice between a very challenging 21-page article by Singal and a very accessible 2-page article by Farley, almost the entire class used the challenging article, while only 3 people chose to use the accessible article. In fact, the accessible article held no more value in the mind of the students than random articles that they found online. This occurred even though I had mentioned how applicable the accessible article would be to their writing and how easy it would be to complete. This evidence seems to suggest that students generally have a very strong aversion to doing any reading outside of what is absolutely required for a grade in the class, which I'm sure most of us already knew. What now? How are you going to close the assessment loops? So the next 3 answers end up being kind of repetitive, but could be useful if you end up needing to answer a question a certain way. So this assessment activity shows clear indication that if I want students to read something, I need to hold them accountable for that reading. This loop will be closed by continuing to do so. If not addressed, what changes are you making in your courses? My intention is to continue to hold students accountable for any and all reading they do in the future. And then what changes are you making to your program or department? I will discuss the results of this assessment with the English department so that we may compare results. No specific changes are planned at this time. So there's other people in the department that are doing this assessment activity, and we'll see what they come up with. And they might be doing a slightly different version of the activity, but they're doing something like this. So the last big thing on here is, if not addressed above, what changes or recommendations do you have for the college as a result of your assessment? And I wrote a little bit longer here to give you an idea of how you might do something like this, but this is actually what I believe also. This is what I think is true about holding students accountable for reading. So I say, I recommend that faculty hold students accountable for reading if they actually want that reading to occur. With busy lives, students prioritize graded work over non-graded work. Work done for the classroom, including reading, should be recognized as coursework and assessed as such. If an instructor expects students to do something for a class, that work needs to be accounted for. Reading quizzes and article summaries are not only valuable in ensuring great class conversations and final products, but they help clarify the workload. In my opinion, holding students accountable for reading keeps the load honest. If I want my students to read 4 novels and 6 articles and write 6 papers, show up to class for lectures, etc., I need to see that those are all part of the burden that I place on students. To have them read but not have points assigned to that reading is essentially to tell the students that I expect them to work for nothing. While the argument may be made that the final exam or essay or assignment necessitates and accounts for the reading requirement, whether accounted for separately or not, the majority of students do not seem to recognize it as such. As to how students complete these things without doing the reading, I cannot say. I would guess that it comes from a combination of last-second cramming, skimming, masquerading, and/or luck. Whatever the means, I would also guess that the final product is not meeting its full potential. So this last section is about how to actually submit your report. So when I wanted to submit my report, I went to the Big Bend homepage, I went to the portal, then I went to the faculty and staff workplace, and I went to MCO's assessment reporting under the department section, and then I went to enter course assessments in that next page. Once I got in there, it looked like this or something like this. This is the SharePoint page, and this is where you actually submit your final assessment. So the report that you've been holding on to, the Word document or whatever format you're keeping it in, that document is just to, 1, let your dean see your plan, but then 2, it's just for you to hold on to your plan. And then when you finish writing up that report, you're going to submit it there. Now, I would also recommend just hanging on to it, keeping a file on your desk that says assessment reports, and you have an assessment report for each year that you can go back to and look at if you need to. That's everything for this video, and I hope this has been helpful in some sort of way, and have a good rest of your day.